Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I will be talking about Godzilla 2014. This is episode 2 of the series. So the first movies I'm going to review on this are going to be every movie in the MonsterVerse. So look forward to that. So unlike last time, I'm actually going to get into the video. So I think this movie is the best movie in the MonsterVerse, and I think this movie is criminally underrated. This movie works as a nod to the original 1954 Godzilla movie and all the Toho films, and as a new introduction to this new universe and this new version of Godzilla. One thing I think this movie does really well is Godzilla. He's the main character, but he's not really. Everything happens because of Godzilla in this movie. But they don't focus. They don't just show him fighting a bunch of random monsters and destroying cities. It shows the aftermath of that. In the beginning of the movie, they show the nuclear power plant disaster as a result of Godzilla. They treat Godzilla as his first force of nature to be reckoned with. And that's what he was meant to be treated as. But instead of being a representation of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, he is a representation of untamed nature and what happens when humans try to control it, which also gets into that the fact that the themes are really good. Speaking of Godzilla and how they did him perfectly in this movie, everyone always says this, but the build-up and the tension with the directing and Godzilla. So Godzilla's only in the movie for a total of 8 to 10 minutes. And it doesn't just show him battling. Most of the time, it shows his destruction. It still shows his body, but not until over halfway into the movie is the first time you see his face. And I thought I wouldn't have shown his face in the middle of the movie, but it still works. Of course, there are problems with this movie, but I'll get to that later. I'm going to address the fact about how they build up. In the movie, they don't show Godzilla. They show the destruction and the epicness of that destruction. They show the Mutos, which are, of course, generic and whatever, but they don't need a bunch of giant alien-looking monsters to be developed. They show all this destruction, and then it really pays off at the end. And you get to finally see Godzilla and just watch what everybody was expecting. But I like that it wasn't just a monster mash. It was a character-driven story, which the MonsterVerse is starting, like all movies, starting to lack with the inclusion of Godzilla King of the Monsters. But back to the actual movie. Something I meant to say before was the director and the direction of this movie is fantastic. Gareth Edwards is great for scale, so it makes sense why he directed this movie. He directed Rogue One, which is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and I think that movie is, of course, good because of this. Because in that movie, it provides a story of something happening in a larger universe. A smaller story, but big things are happening. And this movie does that really well. And speaking of which, Rogue One, the other movie he directed, also has some of the same problems as this movie, which are the first half of the movie isn't as strong as the second half. And the characters are, of course, bland. The main character, I forget his name because he's so bland and forgettable, but he is a very generic military guy. But they could have just made him so much more. Like, they introduced an extremely strong backstory. Of course, Bryan Cranston was his role, but his character is written blandly. These characters are all used as story devices and tools, even though it can be so much more. It still works because they carry the story forward, and they use these characters to tell a story in a very boring way. But I digress. This is still a fun movie. It's not like the performances are bad, because of course you have Bryan Cranston, and Aaron Taylor Davis, I think that's his name. He's a pretty good actor. He's Quicksilver, of course, the guy in this movie, and the dude from Kick-Ass, the main guy. Also Elizabeth Olsen, but I will be making a WandaVision episode soon, so I'll, of course, talk about her. Now that I've pretty much said all the good and the bad, now I'm going to talk about some of my favorite scenes in the movie, including one, the Halo jump scene. I also apologize / don't really care about the bad audio before in the video. The next pictures you're going to see on your screen, I honestly think are gorgeous, and it should explain why this scene is so good. But look up Godzilla 2014 Halo jump scene and watch it in the best possible way you can. It is honestly terrifying, which is what makes it so good. So, it's very thrilling. It has this opera singing in the background, like Italian opera, but it's really good. And the whole scene is meant to be suspenseful, and it definitely accomplishes that. And, like, in the MonsterVerse in general, Godzilla vs. Kong and not Godzilla vs. Kong, Kong Skull Island and this, both have first-person shots. And parts of this are first-person shots. And, of course, the movie looks amazing. So, when you're in these first-person shots, you're just falling down with the opera music playing, seeing Godzilla fight the ginormous Muto. It's pretty horrifying and glorious. They jump out of the plane for style, have red lighter things, like the ones from Jurassic Park, attached to their feet. And it slowly shows them jump from through the layers of the atmosphere, and it looks really good. And they're falling next to the Muto and Godzilla fighting, which really gives you a sense of the scale, which, of course, director Gareth Edwards is great at. This scene just embodies the greatness of the movie, and this is the main scene, or the main reason why I love this movie so much. Like, I really just love this movie because of this scene, but this movie's still good. Okay, next scene. Okay, so the next scene should already be showing for you. So it's the bridge scene. So in the trailer basically has all the best parts of the movie, clips of it, including the bridge scene. So there's a part that leads into the bridge scene where all the jets, raptors, and I forgot the name. Keep forgetting grab. Fall from the sky into the water, and Godzilla's and the battleships are following Godzilla. It's a bunch of cool stuff. But the bridge scene itself, what makes it so good is it shows civilian casualties. There was school buses on the bridge as there's freaking Abrams tanks aiming at Godzilla, who's grabbing on to the beams of the bridge and snapping them. And this bus driver, the military tells all the bus drivers to stay with all the kids. All the kids are screaming as Godzilla is destroying the bridge. The bus driver, the only bus driver who does this, hits the gas and bravely accelerates forward off the bridge. Barely. But the sad part is everyone behind them dies. So that means a bunch of kids freaking die, which is what makes the movie so good. It's heartfelt and has a story. It's about the aftermath, and not the aftermath, the destruction that these beasts cause. And this really shows it. Another scene I'd like to talk about is the ending trailer shot. What they really marketed off of is what you're showing Godzilla slowly approaching as everyone thrusts. I'm improvising this, give me a break. Thrust the doors closed, and it slowly closed with Godzilla approaching. But then in the movie, they do this into great effect. They didn't expect it to be something that they can market it off of, but they slowly close the doors, and it shows Godzilla fighting Muto, representing the uncertainty and, of course, destruction that Godzilla brings. Also the fear he brings. Like I said, I'm improvising. Okay, it's insane that this video's at the 10-minute mark, so I gotta hurry up. Good thing there's only one thing I'd like to talk about. It's just how good I think this movie looks. And I just think it's gorgeous. Godzilla looks amazing. The scaling, everything. It just looks good. It's a fun movie that you can watch at most parts. And especially with actual Godzilla and all the scenes that I'm mentioning. And yeah, I really like this movie. You should go check it out. And the scene that I'm showing right now is Godzilla using his atomic breath, which I think just looks awesome. So, I hope you like listening to my sexy, passionate voice ramble about this movie for 10 minutes. Also, I meant for there to be a lot more jokes this time, but in the last episode was majority me just making ape ginormous cock jokes. So I guess this time I have to say ginormous radioactive lizard penis.